My name is Joshua Richards, founder of OSINT Praxis and part of the leadership team at the UK OSINT Community, and I run these Capture the Flag events. That's why I love doing these live sessions every week to actually go through how these can be solved. And it's cool for me because I'm not the one who creates all of the Capture the Flags. This week's one was created by a member in the Discord, Shorty, and so it's really fun for me being able to go through and test them and kind of go through them myself as well and learning about these new resources and techniques that I then get to go through on here as well. So I hope that you all are enjoying them as well. And by the way, if anyone else does want to help with creating them, that is definitely a possibility. So you're welcome to DM me, message me on Discord, and we can discuss about you creating some challenges that can go out 1 week because we release them every single week. So this week's one is Operation Constellation. And the first challenge is Developed in Darkness. We have 86 people who have solved this particular challenge. So let's see. The Constellation Killer, I won't read it all, but they've sent a ripple of fear through law enforcement worldwide. And it basically goes on to say that they have committed various murders, and we are in charge of hunting them down and trying to actually get ahead of them to find the final location before they're able to strike on that final one. So in this first one and the first series of challenges, we're identifying locations where he has already striked and he is sending taunting images and things like that into law enforcement, basically thinking that he's smarter and that we won't be able to identify where he is. So with this first one, we download the image. I've actually already got it here. And this one is asking us to identify what square is shown in this image. So we have to not just find, the street or like the buildings. It specifically says what square is this in front of us. And with this one, it's quite a simple reverse image search. So if we go to, let me just open it in Photopia, you'll see if you come here every week, we tend to be coming across the same resources. And it's not always about Photopia is the solution to solving this challenge, but there's just certain workflows. Like I personally like to open imagery in something like Photopia because then it allows me to use my browser extensions to run reverse image searches much more easily rather than me having to, download the image and manually go to Google, upload it to search, open Bing, manually upload it. Here I can just open it straight into my Photopia and then I can zoom it in. And now you'll notice again, week on week, we seem to be using things like the search by image extension. So this is a really good extension if you don't have it already. And what this allows you to do, if you set it on capture, when you click an option like Google, for example, it now lets you capture a specific part of your screen. It doesn't even have to be the image. I could just capture over here the side of the page. You can capture anything that is on your page right now and quickly click the search button. That will open up Google and automatically enter in that photo to run the search for it. And again, there was loads of different options. You could do it all on, you could click search all and it would literally open up tabs on Google, like Lenzo, Bing, Yandex, and all of these others. And that's a tiny portion of what's actually available. And it would open it on all of them. So it's a really quick and cool way to run those much more quickly. Undead's requested to speak. Let me know if you want to say something in the chat or something like that. Maybe at the end in the Q&A, I could bring people up to speak, but yeah. Okay, but so now we've got that searched in here. And it says here, the image captures a moment in Albert Square. So the question was asking what square it is, and we have the answer here, Albert Square. All right, so let me go back and enter that in. Again, as always, we use the OSINT UK format. And it says here exactly what to do in terms of replacing spaces with underscores. So this is how we enter that. There we go. So the second one, A Walk in the Park. The constellation killer's reign of terror continues, and his messages grow increasingly sinister. We now have to get this photo that he has sent in on a USB stick and identify what park he is in. So it specifically says that it's a park. We just have to identify exactly which one. So I've already got it downloaded, and what we'll go to this time is forensically. Again, you'll probably recognize this if you've been keeping up to date with previous lives or previous walkthroughs. I will put this for the people here in the chat as well. So with this one, if we open up this particular file, which is Constellation 2, it doesn't look like there's anything too fancy here initially, but actually there's multiple ways that you can solve this. I thought that there's not too much context here for reverse image searching, but actually if I just, I think previously I basically screenshotted this tiny portion here. So if you can see that, just about like a tiny portion of the skyline, when I put that into like Gemini, Google's AI, it literally came up saying exactly what park I was sat in here to take that photo. So the AI is insane with these kinds of searches. But we don't require that because you can actually go down on this website to metadata. And in the metadata, we have lots of things. That's why this one wasn't one of like the Polaroid images. This one was sent in on a USB stick, and obviously not always, but in this case, we do have the metadata available. So if we go to the geotags, for example, you can see on the map the exact location. I can open that into Google Maps. And let's see, so here we go. Liverpool. Let's go into satellite. Then we can see that this is exactly where we were here. And this is Everton Park. So Everton Park is the answer for this one. So yeah, and as I always say every week, there's always multiple, or typically multiple ways to solve these things. So that could have been solved using probably a reverse image search and plugging that into AI and asking it where you are, because that gave me the correct answer. But also here there was the metadata as well. And importantly, with the metadata, some of you may have noticed here that there's kind of a discrepancy where if you're looking at all of the metadata, we can see things down here like the lens make, the lens model, and all of this. And that mentions that the make is Apple and the model is from an iPhone 12. But then up at the top, the make here is shown as this weird thing. So, it's interesting. Why would it say that this is the make if actually down here it's an iPhone with Apple? So this is actually the name of a star. And of course you can, run a search for this. And it lets you know here that this is a star in the Big Dipper constellation. And actually I forgot with the initial image that if I open that back up, let's go here. Let me open it back. Yeah, here we go. So here in this one, we actually have this sign on the wall, and that has been edited here. So if you actually go to this location on Google Maps, you'll see that initially something else is written on this sign, but here it's been edited to say this. And that, like Merak, is another name of a star in the Big Dipper. So now, from just these first two challenges, we have two names of stars which are from the same Big Dipper constellation. Let me open the Discord back up here. Okay, just reading through the chat, make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, Oxford grad used AI for all five. Exactly. I think that's what I was saying at the start as well, that lots of people probably had like a false sense of security, or like, because the first few were a lot easier to solve just using AI or basic techniques. But then when you get to those last few, that's where it got a lot harder. So people kind of thought, oh, we're just getting through this really quickly, and then get stuck at that roadblock at the end. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we have those. We have this one answered. Now we move on to challenge number 3, the last meal. So with this one, let me go open it up here. Challenge number 3. I don't know why there's so much space around these images, but okay. So we were given this image here. Big John's neighborhood takeaway. We can kind of see that it looks like we're like on a road here, like on maybe a main road, and it does mention here on the road sign something like A41 road to Wolverhampton and Dudley. And we can see things like this logo in the background. If you're not from, well, actually, I don't know what countries they're in, but I instantly kind of recognize that as the Salvation Army, but maybe not everyone would recognize that. And then we have these other buildings over here, and it says that it's the UK's first drive-through chip shop and things like that. So I actually did try asking AI for like, where is this? And it gave me all of these random locations for Big John's. It didn't really help out. Even though I said it seems to be right next to a Salvation Army, it still didn't really manage to give me a good, accurate location, which was quite surprising. It probably will. I think it's a matter of some people ask it and they get the answer straight away. Other people ask it and it gives them all of these loads of options. It really depends. You could probably ask it the same thing twice and get 2 different results. It's just one of those things with AI. But actually, if we just go into Google Maps again, and we do a search for Big John's neighborhood takeaway. Let's go. Things are taking a while to load here. We can see that most of them are all around this area. So most likely our answer is somewhere here. Now, we saw on the road sign that there's this road going to Wolverhampton and Dudley. So if we look on the map where those are, we can see that over here, there is Dudley. And then I think up somewhere from that is Wolverhampton. There you go. So Wolverhampton is there, and we have Dudley down below. So most likely it's going to be one of these here, which is much closer to that. It's not really likely to be these on the other side. So if you literally just start with the one nearest to those, Dudley and Wolverhampton, you look at this Big John's, you can see as you zoom in that this is right alongside this main road, which when it loads in, will say the A41. Don't know why everything is being so slow, but yeah, this is the A41, which we saw, there you go, A41, which we saw on the road markings. And you can see here that there is a Salvation Army right there next to the Big John's. And if we go into the street view, we have this huge truck in the way. So to get rid of that, we can go to see more dates, go back to a different street view archive of this. Let's go back a little bit. And here now, we can see the Big John sign. We have the same building, the road signs, the Salvation Army, all of that. So that shows us that we now have the correct location. Quick thing also, you notice here, we have this road sign, which says red route clear way and no stopping. But while here it says no stopping, if we look on the image here, it says Megrez. Here, no stopping. Here, Megrez. So this is the clue, I suppose, for the third challenge, where that again is another name of a star in the Big Dipper. So that is where that one was hidden there on the road sign. So you can then just, yeah, go back, go into the Big John's, and then you have the address here, and this postcode for this address is the answer to this one. So we could just take that. I can take the postcode, and we go OSINT UK, and we get that one correct. Let me have a quick look at the chat here. Yeah, exactly. Searched for the Salvation Army. That's what I thought would work for me, and yeah, I tried it and it just didn't give me the results when I searched for that. And yeah, that was a good option as well. When I was looking through everything again today, I saw that they had the locations on their website. There's quite a lot of locations, so it's definitely an option to just kind of go through them all on maps or something. You could even just go on to Google Maps like I was kind of looking at and just see them all and zoom into all of them. But yeah, there's multiple ways as always. So now this next one, we're on to remote access. With this one, again, it's a USB stick that has come in with an image on it. And in the background, a large industrial structure dominates the skyline. So we now have to find the name of the island the image was taken on. So again, as always, I was running through these. I was trying to test it out on AI. And I asked it, what island are we on? And it was just saying, it's on the island of Great Britain, United Kingdom, all of this kind of stuff. And I said, like, no, that's not the answer. Do something else. Give me a different answer. And it just kept saying, well, it's on the Great Britain, like the island of Great Britain. That's all it would keep telling me. Because I suppose technically it's not an actual island, right? It's just the name of it. But yeah, so this one I did still solve nonetheless with AI. So let me pull that over here. So you can kind of see here that I just entered in the photo. I just copied and pasted in the photo to Gemini. I personally use Gemini as my main one. And I said, can you tell me exactly where this photo was taken from? Be as specific as possible. Apparently it's an island, but it seems like it's in the United Kingdom, so I'm not sure. And then this just told me straight away, this photo was taken at the Toyota Island, also known as Toyota Roundabout, which is junction 4 of the A50 in Derbyshire. So straight away, we kind of see the answer is Toyota Island, and that solves that one. And again, I'm sure there's people who have solved that in many different ways as well, actually looking at the road markings, maybe looking at what those industrial structures were and going into maps and tracking back and everything. But yeah, that's one of the easy ways to kind of get that answer. So let's go with that. We get that one correct. But before we move on, as you've been seeing, there's always these star names in each image. So we haven't yet found that one. So if I open a file here in Forensically again, and I open that particular one, similar to the one I created on week 1 of the Capture the Flag challenges, you can actually solve it using the same technique, where in forensically, you start off with the magnifier with this kind of histogram. And if you just go over things, especially usually the sky is where things might be hiding, you can just start to look over it and see if you see anything unusual or something you don't expect. So if you come over here, let's see if I can actually get it. Here we go. So you see, if you look at the sky above it, it doesn't look like there's anything there. It's very well blended in. But if you just go here, you can start to see there is a P, a H, E. That one's a bit hard to see next, but it's a C. Then you have a letter D, and finally an A. So that again is another name of a star in the Big Dipper. All right. So let's go back here and move to the next one. So Ghostwriter, this is one where we have, how many is this? 55 solves. So I think lots of people managed to get this one. And then after this one is where people started to really start like struggling a lot more. With this one, what we had to do is get the image. And again, let me just open that here. And all you have to do, let me actually open it in Photopia so we can zoom in and see it a bit better. So part of this here has been redacted. And in this redaction part here, it says a location. So we have to work out what was that location that has now been hidden. Sometimes you might be able to look at whether the redaction was done in a bad way, where you can actually still find it. That's not the case here, but it's worth knowing about. The fact that in things like Photopia, where you have all of this access to different photo editing effects, you could try things like the levels and just go over, see if there's anything you can do, see if there's any, text that comes up, things like that. But in this case, that does not seem to be the case. So what we can do instead here is literally just go to Google and start searching what text it says. So we could go to Google and just search petty sessions Monday before kernel, and then let's see what comes up. So let me go here and I'll just start typing in. Again, I tend to always use quotation marks. Sometimes it's good to try without quotation marks as well. But let's go petty sessions. What do we have then? So Monday before. And you'll notice that in this, yes, it's on a new line. There's a full stop. There's hyphens and dashes and all of this. Doesn't matter. Like Google doesn't really register or like recognize or care about those things anyway. So you can just focus on the main text here. So Monday before colonel, there we go. So if I just search for this, you see that we do start to get some different results. The next words that we're looking for is the letter A, and then Dugdale, Chairman, Mrs. Brooks. So let's look through these. We can see that this one here isn't correct. Neither is that. And then here with this one, pre-World War II archives, we have petty sessions Monday, before Colonel A, Dugdale, Chairman, Mrs. Brooks. That's what we were looking for. So this is the correct result that we're looking for. And if we click into this now, we can go into this, I believe, or was that not that? Well, regardless, it's fine. We can see it from here. Oh, this was it, yeah. Open. There was something. I've clicked on something earlier and it brought it up in a bigger thing, like this maybe. Here we go. Yeah, so if you click into it, it's down here on the side, and then you can always click into it further. I just open, like right click and open image in new tab, and then you can zoom in here. So now we can read this without the redaction on it, and right here is where we can see the location as Morton in Marsh. And yeah, I think I found this also with AI, as yeah people say in the chat. So yeah, you could have used AI for this one, or just doing basic Google queries, and you would come across the full result, and you see the unredacted version. All right. Oh, and for this one, let's go there. So for this one here with the newspaper, did anyone get the star that was in this? Because I'm sure if you do know the pattern already, you could start to guess what the star would be or find it out by the geographical pattern. But where it's hidden down here is actually on the side. So on the side here, you can see ALIOTH, and it's just repeated down the entire side, ALIOTH, and it's just hidden all the way down there. So that is the name of the next star in the Big Dipper. That's where it was hidden in that challenge. Okay. So the next one, character witness, and this is where lots of people started to struggle. For example, I mean, Ghostwriter, we have 56 solves now, and character witness only 20. So lots of people started to struggle here and didn't get past this one. And one person even disliked it. So there's 2 images for you to download here. There's a part 1 and a part 2. And if I open those, you can see part 1 here, where it says at the top, I'm having fun, are you? Don't be such a downer and solve this, my friend. Or yeah, solve this, my friend. The key is in the stars. And then we have all of these digits. Seems to be usually 2 digits. Sometimes there's 3 digits. And then the same in part 2 as well. So again, with this one, it's a bit harder to solve with AI, but AI can definitely still be used to assist you in that process. So what I did, let me get this open as well. I think this is the one. Yeah. So as you can see here, this is again in Gemini. I simply uploaded both of the photos, part 1 and part 2, and I simply said, can you give me a copy of all the ciphertext starting from the file with part 1 and then onto part 2? Only include the actual ciphertext parts, which is the digits. And can you also tell me, based on how the cipher looks, what viable types of ciphers would this be? Apparently it uses a key. I think it's likely one of the names of a star in the Big Dipper. So that's all I told it, and it then went off and it completely did its OCR, optical character recognition, and it managed to grab all of those digits for me perfectly, even though the images are with handwriting, not normal digital text, it's handwriting. It still managed to perfectly grab those without any issues. And then it said down here some potential ways that, you could try to decode the cipher. But all of these ended up being incorrect because it kept trying to pick the most popular ciphers and just saying, well, it's probably this because these are the most popular, and you could just do the numerical version of it. So here it says Bacon cipher numerical variation. And then this is one of the ones we used previously. And then it says numerical version. So what I went and told it is that lots of the cipher options are normal ones that you say could use a numerical format, but are there other possible ciphers that traditionally do just use 2 to 3 number pairs like this and needs a key to decipher it? So it's not always just about giving it one random sentence to try and solve it, and then if it's wrong, you give up on it. sometimes it's good actually having a conversation with the AI so that it can expand and give you different options based on your knowledge and also, of course, its knowledge. So now it reevaluated everything and actually said, you're right to push for more specific types. And then option number 1 here for the ciphers that actually use numeric values and the digits in that way is this one here. And this one is actually the correct cipher. And of course, you wouldn't know that initially, but you go through these. You could be given these, you go try this cipher, see that it doesn't work. You try these other ones, see that it doesn't work, so then you move on. Now we've gotten to this particular one. So if I go and run a search for this, we can see this website here that helps us to encode and decode this particular cipher. So let me change it to decode. And then I will, let me get back up this. And I will copy and paste part 1 and part 2. There you go, that's part 1, and then copy and paste part 2 right after it. And now, one of the issues was that people seem to be getting different alphabets by default. You can see that when I open this website, I get this alphabet, which starts with zebra and then has some of these other characters. But for other people, the alphabet was something completely different. So that's why in the actual challenge at the bottom, we mentioned what alphabet you need to use to do this deciphering. So using that alphabet there, we could enter that in. And now you just need the key. And of course, you can have a look, like, what are the names of the Big Dipper stars? And we see all of those here. We've already seen this one. We've seen this one, and this one, and this. So there's only 2 potential stars left that would likely be the key to this cipher. So if we, for example, tried this first one, we go here, it just gives us an error. So this one does not seem to be correct because it only gives an error. And then if we go to the second option, now it gives us all of this text. So that now does seem to be the correct key, and we've been given all of these letters. So what I did here is, again, went back to the AI, and I basically said, so let me get it here. I basically said, okay, now this decoded into some kind of riddle or puzzle. It doesn't have spaces between the letters. Can you add spaces so that I can read the words properly? So I give it the full decoded text, and then it straight away, it just decoded, or not even decoded, it just added spaces in between the words so that now I can properly read what the riddle actually says. And then this is, I think lots of people got to this point, but then were stuck on getting the answer to this actual part. And again, we can have a chat with Shorty in the chat, but I think, yeah, it's a matter of, I asked the AI and got it straight away. Other people were asking the AI in different ways and using different models, ChatGPT versus Gemini versus others. And it's like some do give the correct answer, some don't. I'm throwing all of the blame on you, not me. But basically what I did, let me get up the other chat, because what I also found is that because I've been speaking about stars with this particular AI chat, it kept mixing that into the conclusions for solving the riddle. So it kept saying, oh, well, the riddle says this, and if we think about the clues around the stars, maybe it means this. And it's like, no, I never said that. So it just tries to bring in these other elements from your previous conversations, which aren't even relevant. So sometimes it also really helps to just start a fresh new chat and ask that if it can objectively identify an answer to the riddle on its own. So I believe this one here. So with this one here now, I said, look at the riddle below, analyze this riddle, break down the geological clues. And by the way, I was later playing around with the different AI things and got AI to tell me a good prompt to use. Because again, if you just throw this riddle into Gemini on its own, it doesn't seem to do it very well. It gets caught up with like red herrings and false positives, and it doesn't give you the right answer. But when I asked AI to give me a good prompt to ask it so that it would actually go through each clue and objectively get an answer that actually matches for a single location, that it like every clue actually works for that location, this is the prompt it gave me. So that's why I'm asking it, analyze this riddle, break down the geological clues, chalk versus limestone, the hydrological clues, type of river, and the urban layout clues. List the top 3 candidates that fit all criteria, and explain any red herrings that might point to a nearby neighbor. And then I gave it the full riddle. And down here then, it actually gives us some different explanations around the various clues. And then at the end of it, it gives me the top 3 candidates. So we have Winchester, Salisbury, and Marlborough. And in this particular challenge, Marlborough is the correct answer. So, you know, this was just one single prompt, and I got the answer as number 3. And of course, you could go into it more and say, well, objectively go through the clues again. Which area does it actually most kind of identify with? Maybe it will say, Marlborough. Because I remember the first time I tried it out, and I literally only got Marlborough. I literally just said, what's the answer to this riddle? And it gave me Marlborough. But then every time I've asked it since, it gives me all these other random places. So it really can depend on exactly how you ask it, whether you focus in on the actual clues, and then once it understands what the clues are trying to get at, then it might be better at getting a location, rather than just asking it what's the answer, what's the location, and it getting caught up with what the clues even mean and giving you the incorrect answers. So we have Marlborough here, and that is the correct answer for this particular challenge. And again, yeah, Schulte can tell you in the chat, there was certain things I know that he mentioned around the clues meaning things around the stones. I've forgotten what they're called now, but certain stones. So the clues do directly link to Marlborough. But in terms of the AI also believes that it closely relates to various others as well. So that leads to lots of the confusion. All right. So OSINT UK, and we have Marlborough, and we get that one correct. And so now we also, basically, from getting the key, we now know what the star for that one is. And now there's only one star left. So now the big picture. This one has 7 solves. So this one, again, is one that lots of people really struggled with. And as it says, this is the end game. A final image has arrived, stripped of clear clues and seemingly impossible to place on its own. Investigators believe it was designed this way. The killer expects his pattern to be understood now. Perhaps the previous locations were not random. Together, they could possibly form a deliberate sequence. And only by recognizing that structure can the final location be identified. This is no longer about finding clues, it's about predicting the killer's next move. What is the name of the street the constellation killer will strike on next? So we now have to go out and find what street this is. And the photo, let's download that. This is the photo. So it's pretty small. You can zoom in, but it's quite blurry. There's not too much to see. If you put this into AI, it's going to be very random. It gives loads of random answers because it doesn't have very much to work with. So the idea with this challenge, and I was talking a bit about it at the start, was that this, as the challenge says here, the idea is that it should be relatively impossible to do on its own. But by understanding the pattern of the previous challenges and the Big Dipper and everything like that, you would know a general location. So let's go. I did get this website up, and I kind of forgot to put them in as we went through, but let me try to put some in here. I think it should update. There we go. So Albert Square, Everton Park. There we go. Let me get this. Have Toyota Island. There we go. And let's see, Morton and Marsh. But you can see here as I'm doing this that as we actually plot them all out, and resources like this are really great for that, actually seeing them all on the same map at the same time, not just like Google where you search one and then another. Obviously, Google does have certain things like Google Earth and Google My Maps where you can plot multiple locations as well. But websites like this are just quick and simple as well. Then Marlborough. Not that. There we go. And then we need the final answer. So these are the first 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we're on challenge number 7. So what I'm going to try do, and I think it's a bit challenging, but I'm going to take a screenshot of this just to try show a general idea. Let me open that up here. Okay. So you can go and get an actual photo of like the Big Dipper. But as you can see, the issue here is that lots of these photos are very slightly different. It's obviously the same pattern, but ultimately they're all very slightly different. So it's hard to get one which is going to line up for everyone. But the idea here is that if you kind of put this photo in and you can kind of lower the opacity or something, and then if we flip it around and kind of go like this. Oh, that's my bad. I should have selected more of this. Let's go like this. Here we go. So you see here, as you kind of try to overlay it, something kind of like this. I'll just kind of leave it there for now. But you can start to see, and so if you realized this pattern a bit earlier on, Yeah, there's probably, yeah, ways like you can rotate it, make it. Yeah, alt, I mean, it's here. That's what I was doing. Like I rotated it a bit and was resizing it. You could do it, more spot on. It really depends. But ultimately, you have these kinds of locations here. And so, yeah, if you realize the pattern earlier on, let me do it a bit better, hopefully. Then you could have potentially been helped out a bit on the other challenges, because if you know that then number 3 is the star around here, then you can geolocate it more easily to a location around this area. Okay. This will do. Something like this. Now, obviously, we can see that, so those are the 4 points for that. These two are together, these two are together. And then the final star that we're missing is down here at the bottom. So this wasn't intended to be that, okay, it's exactly on this point. I mean, as you can see here, they're not all exactly spot on. But this is a good general location around this area for where this final image is going to be located. So now we have a general city, a general location. And yeah, Shoti put a photo in the chat as well of the one that he did, which is a bit more kind of accurate. Okay. And yeah, Oxford grad need to learn to use Photopea properly. Exactly. Photopea is insane because, I mean, it's like Photoshop, but completely free and on browser. Like, it's insane. And there's so many use cases that people wouldn't often think about because, I don't know, you think of it as just, oh, photo editing. But there's so many methods you can do with it that give you tons of information or allow you to find things that you wouldn't find otherwise just by using the basic photo editing techniques. So it's really cool. But yeah, so we're looking for this particular street, and now we have a general search area, probably around Portsmouth, kind of Southampton, Winchester, this area down here. So in order to do this, we now need to use a resource like Overpass Turbo. And Overpass Turbo is much more fancy for geolocating impossible looking images. Because with Overpass Turbo, you basically create very advanced looking queries. They can be basic, it's just that it looks more complicated because typically you're not searching something in plain English. You have to craft a query. It looks like programming code and stuff like that. So it throws lots of people off from doing it because it seems much more complex. But there are websites out there, like the one we intended people to try and find, which was findthatspot.io. Now I'll put this in the chat here. Find that spot, and if you can sign up on this like through Google and stuff like that, just through a Google account or something. And what this allows you to do is search in plain English what you want, and then it will, I assume, use AI to kind of craft one of those complex queries with Overpass Turbo, and it runs it for you all in plain English. So it makes it super easy for everyone to now use, but to still do these seemingly impossible geolocations. The way this works in Overpass Turbo in general is using OpenStreetMap, because you imagine Google, right? Google has so much information on its map, like all of the businesses, everything. But with OpenStreetMap, people literally go around their like cities and everything, plotting the exact location of every lamppost, every telephone box, every telephone pole, every bin, every bench, like all of the lakes, like river CCTV cameras, everything, every one of them. I mean, I guess. I think there are definitely people who are interested in that kind of thing and just like fully documenting everything. I mean, as an example, which is technically not relevant, but there's a website called Find a Grave, I think, findagrave.com or something like that, about grave sites, and you can search people's names and find the grave. That's not intended to be like a morbid thing. And there's people who go around the grave sites taking a photo of them and writing down like what is the plot ID and everything. They mean well, like they're just preserving these things and taking photos to document them, and they are just people who do that. They like documenting these things, or maybe they have like a family member who's there and they wanted to document that, and they just are doing it to try and be helpful for everyone else. But then that stuff can all be used in open source intelligence for both good and bad reasons. So there are definitely people out there who, yeah, for fun, they do enjoy going around and documenting things. And yeah, loads of people do it all over the world for these things on mapping applications. So based on that, what can we pull out of this image? And that is somewhere where you can ask AI. Because even though AI won't solve this challenge for you, it can still help. Because AI knows about what OpenStreetMap has. Like, it's not just about find me a bin. OpenStreetMap has like specific entity names. Like this green thing here is called a street cabinet. Obviously over here is like a post box, and yeah, this is a street cabinet and stuff like that. So they have specific entities associated with them. So if you give this photo to AI and say, what entities or like what things can we pull out of this photo that I would be able to then search in Overpass Turbo using OpenStreetMap? And that straight away for me pulled out like telephone poles, letterbox, bin, street cabinet, and things like that. And obviously some of those are obvious anyway, but I didn't know that this would be called a street cabinet, so yeah, that's really helpful to know. Now, when you go to find that spot, here you can type in your query of what you want to search, and you can be so specific here. So if we go down, but the thing is with this, you can't just go and search the entire world. That's why it was done this way, where you have to get a general location. So now you know it's down this area. You can come down to this area. You don't need to search the whole UK because you can't. It's a very advanced query that's searching so much data points that it doesn't allow you to do searches that are too big. So if we zoom it down here to this kind of general area, still pretty big area. And you could always run a search here. If there was no results, just do it up and now do another search. So you're not like restricted. It's just per search, you can't do too big of an area. But okay, so let's go around here. Let's see if this works out here. And now you can run a search for things like, let's see. So again, let's say we want a street cabinet within a certain distance to this post box. And I am so bad with distances, but I asked the AI as well, what do you think the distance is between these things? And it was completely off. So let's do a post box within, I think 30 was the thing. Is this normal? Someone can tell me if I'm being very stupid here. Post box within 30 meters of a... I remember I was trying it with like 25 and that didn't come up with a result, and then with 30 it did come up with a result, things like that. So you can see here, I've entered that in plain English. It's now analyzing my input. Hopefully it works. 3 a.m. in Japan. Thanks for coming and yeah, staying for this. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, we're recording this as well, so it will go on YouTube. So hopefully you can watch the rest on the recording as well. We'll see if it actually goes through here. There you go. So now it's querying OpenStreetMap. And we have all of these areas here. So just from searching a posts box within 30 meters of a street cabinet, we now have these areas here which match those. If you zoom into them, you can see how close together those are. And there's the legend down at the bottom which says the blue or whatever it is the street cabinet and yellow is the post box. And so you can kind of see and go into them. There is also, I think, yeah, so if you click on one, you can say open Google Street View, and it actually opens Street View down within the application. So you can quickly click on one and see, does this seem to match? And does not really seem to match, but we can see like things like the bins and all of that. So let's go to a different one. Again, you can kind of look through. I can't remember what exactly I searched. I might be searching different kind of distances and things here, but I remember there was one thing I searched where there was like 2 results out of this entire area. I think that it's somewhere down here. Yeah, so these ones down here in this area, we have these 2. So there's one here, and then there's one over here. And so if we click on this, which is the street cabinet, we can actually see, let's open that bigger. We can see that it is actually the same exact image. We have the street cabinet, the bin, the post box, the same posts, all of this other stuff. So again, you could have obviously just, gone through the options here, click through the options, quickly see the street view on the side until you find the correct one. But I'm sure that you could come up with much better queries as well. Like you can mention the bin, which is right next to the street cabinet, because you can make very advanced and specific queries with this stuff. So I just say the post box within that distance to the street cabinet, but then you can add on the street cabinet is like right next to the like a bin, and then you could say something about whatever else you can see. And that, again, I mentioned like the CCTV cameras. There's like, you wouldn't believe, like water fountains and like everything. OpenStreetMap has so much stuff that usually you would see an image and just kind of not pay attention to lots of that stuff, because why would you ever be able to search like a random water fountain? But on OpenStreetMap, you can search all of that stuff. So that can make seemingly impossible images possible to geolocate. So that was the answer, which is, as you can see here, is this, Selsmore Road. And we get that one correct. I wanted to show as well what Grey Fox did. And Grey Fox, I heard people saying about how, oh, like they did some crazy solution for this and like, a very unorthodox way. And literally this was it. So it joined a Facebook group, for like old post boxes. And just as an anonymous person, just posted an anonymous post saying, hello, can anyone identify the location of this photo? I think it's an old post box. And then literally a day later, like he posted this on January 28th at 7:48 p.m. And the morning after, this person here posted that that's Selsmore Road, island number 25 box. He even like knew what post box it was and everything. Like that's insane. So I love that. I was saying it makes me think of like the series of like the OSINT documentaries and stuff like that, where they're hunting these people down and they're like, finding like Hoover in the background of a video, and they're like going to Hoover forums and getting people who know and like are experts at Hoovers and finding out what country that specific one is sold in. And there's stuff like this where you join a group where people have very specific knowledge. And yeah, the funny thing was that this person who answered it has apparently worked in the Royal Mail for like 30 years. So that's the kind of thing he would know. And he just happened to recognize this specific location and literally gave the exact answer straight away. Like an AI couldn't do that, but this guy did. So that's insane. I loved that solution. And even though, yeah, like sometimes, you know, yeah, depending on like the investigation, you might not be able to post. Obviously, CTF isn't that serious. Like with the, I was saying to Grey Fox with like the China OSINT one, that was like a real person. So you wouldn't have wanted to go like posting anything about that or communicating with people. But then with this one, this was all completely fictitious and it's more just for fun. So there's no problem with doing that kind of post, you know? So always weigh up those options before you do it. Like, is it something real? Is it anything sensitive in a real investigation? But when you're able to do that, there's incredible ways to like crowdsource these kinds of things for various different investigations. So that was really cool to see. Okay. But yeah, so that is all of those. So that kind of finishes off the walkthrough for this week. But as